Hi everyone, welcome to Twisted Talks. I'm Josh.
I'm Tanya.
And this week we are covering the case of David Berkowitz, aka Son of Sam, aka 44 Calibre Killer,
AKA son of a bitch.
aka True. Now, Tanya, take the role, take the lead, role play, hee.
Josh, I hate to break it to you, but I really don't think I have the tools that you require.
I only require one, it's not plural.
Okay, well I don't
Plural is a better time though.
I don't have the tool that you require.
This is an unfortunate moment of my life.
Anyway.
Take it away.
So, as Josh said, today's case is the case of We're off to a great start. It's the case of
Berkowitz Burvis.
At least I didn't say David Dobrik this time. Is the case of David Berkowitz, also known as the 44 Calibre Killer, but mostly well known as the Son of Sam. Now, Berkowitz grew up in New York City and later terrorised the city as he killed 6 people and wounded 7 others between July of 1976 and July of 1977. I'm going to trip over my words for this whole thing.
Probably same. Anyhow, so now early life, we got to start off with the background. So, David Berkowitz was born on the 1st of June, 1953, and his birth name was actually Richard David Falco. I'm going to refer to him... Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's weird, but anyway, sorry.
I'm going to refer to him as David for the whole thing. We will get to a point where it'll explain the change of name, but I'm just going to use David full stop because I'm not switching and shopping.
I'll just call him Berkowitz.
But
I don't have enough respect for the murderers to call them by their full names.
So, David was born in Brooklyn, New York, and within days of his birth, Elizabeth Broder, his biological mother, gave him away. She was like, no. Mm-hmm. Now, Elizabeth had gotten into a relationship a few years prior with a man named Joseph Kleinman. He was a married man, and he ended up being the biological father to David. Now, the reasons why Elizabeth gave David away are not known, but it is speculated that Joseph Kleinman may have threatened to leave her if she kept the baby and used his name. So Elizabeth Broder, got a bit of background on her. Elizabeth Broder had grown up in a poor Jewish family and she was working as a waitress. Before she met Joseph Kleinman in 1936, she was married to a man named Tony Falco, hence Richard David Falco. Okay. Even though that wasn't his dad. Mm-hmm. You're not my dad.
You're not my dad.
Elizabeth and Tony were married for less than 4 years, and Tony left Elizabeth for another woman. That stings.
The tea that you have just spilled.
In one paragraph.
The scandals.
And this isn't even about him, really, too much.
No.
Just about his being brought into the world and his mummy.
His mummy.
His mummy.
His mummy issues.
Are you my mummy?
Are you? Don't you start!
Look that up on Doctor Who, guys. Look that up on YouTube and type in Doctor Who.
Are you my mummy?
So, David was adopted by Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz, who lived in the Bronx. My name is Cardi B, and I am from the Bronx. They were a Jewish-American couple and were hardware store retailers. They had no children and were middle-aged. It was at this point that David's name was changed. So obviously they did have a child at this point, the adopted one. Mm-hmm. And it was at this point the name was changed from his birth name. So the couple reversed the order of the boy's name and gave him their own surname. Mm-hmm. So changing it from Richard David Falco to David Richard Berkowitz. Please ignore my dog having a moment in the background. He's a bit elderly.
Okay.
Bless his senile heart. Where the fuck was I?
You were here.
Yes. So changing it to
here.
the David Richard Berkowitz. The couple raised David as their only child. Now, moving on. John Vincent Sanders, a journalist, wrote that David's childhood was, quote, somewhat troubled, unquote. Even though David had above average intelligence, he had lost interest in his education at an early age and had become obsessed with petty theft and starting fires. Okay, now I lost interest in education very early as well. Mm-hmm. And yes, I like to watch things burn sometimes. And
sounds like my cousin.
Petty theft, I'm not going to say anything.
Lost interest in education.
Because if I was to say anything in terms of my past with petty theft, I'd have to plead the fifth.
Yeah, let's not go there for either of us. But
we've moved on, we've grown. Into normal, relatively functioning adults.
Just to clarify,
we're not serial killers.
When we say petty theft, we never stole from people, just from businesses.
And they weren't small local
And we were
ones.
children.
We grew out of it.
We did. But anyway, the petty theft and starting fires sounds like a certain family member of mine. He tried to set his school on fire.
Oh my god, we've all visualised it, not all tried it though. So, yeah, somewhat troubled.
Somewhat troubled.
So anyway, neighbours and relatives of David recalled him as difficult, spoiled and a bully. His adoptive parents had consulted at least one psychotherapist due to his misconduct, but his bad behaviour never resulted in legal intervention or any serious marks on his school records. So I guess he kept it under wraps to some extent.
So he didn't try and burn down his school.
And then later on he got a rap.
A
rap sheet, bitch. David's adoptive mother passed away when he was 14 years old due to breast cancer, and in later years his home life became strained. Main contributing factor to this was his dislike for his adoptive father's second wife. David lived with his father while he attended, and obviously by that I mean adoptive father, while he attended Christopher Columbus High School, where he graduated in 1971, and he also was there while he was in college, in a 4.5-room apartment at 170 Dreiser Loop in Co-op City from 1967 to 1971.
What's a 4.5-room apartment?
That's what I was wondering. I'm like,
is that a box room?
I'm like, is it a box room or is it a room that doesn't have an ensuite?
I don't know, that's weird.
Do you know, because like, I don't know if we've American listeners, correct me on this, give us a message. But I feel like a lot of American bedrooms, it's a given that you have an ensuite, unlike here.
Yeah.
So maybe 4.5 means without an ensuite, or maybe it does mean a really, really small room.
Ensuite.
Maybe it just means like a single bedroom.
I'm very lucky.
So at the age of 17, in 1971, David joined the United States Army, where he served at Fort Knox in the States and with an infantry division in South Korea. David was honourably discharged in June 1974.
I'm sorry, I need to interject for a second. How many murderers have we come across now that have been not only in the military in some way, shape or form, but have been honourably discharged?
But you know, I've seen a lot of them having dishonourably discharged. I was surprised to see he was honourably discharged.
I feel like the ones that we've covered, now I could be wrong, but as far as I recall, most of them, if not excuse me, if not all of them, were honourably discharged.
I thought it was dishonourably, but either way, it's still the fact that they were all in the military.
Yeah, like what is it with murderers?
But I think maybe it's probably because it's a place to go, like, and if needs be, you can be violent, and it's what you're being paid to do.
And I think maybe the strictness of the routine probably draws them in some bit.
Exactly. And that could be maybe while they're in that routine and while they're, you know, fighting for their country, but also in a strict routine, maybe that's what keeps them kind of those
in check
tendencies at bay. And then when they're discharged, bye-bye.
It's like, boom.
You know?
Boom goes the
So David, as we said, was honourably discharged in June 1974. And at this time he had located his birth mother Elizabeth, who was also known as Betty. After seeing each other a few times, Elizabeth actually told David the details of his birth and whatnot. And this news did not bide well with David. He was quite distraught by the array of reluctant father figures. So that
I can imagine that would have an effect on your psyche.
Elliot Layton, an anthropologist, described David's discovery of his birth details as the quote-unquote primary crisis of his life, a discovery that shattered his sense of identity. David's communication with his birth mother Elizabeth later ceased, but for a while he remained in touch with his half-sister Rosalind. And if I go once more, I'm going to slap my head off the table. I was about to do it. David went to the Bronx Community College for 1 year, where he enrolled in the spring of 1975. The next year being 1976, just to clarify that, David went to work as a driver for the Co-op City Taxi Company. What a name for a city, the Co-op.
Co-op.
We have the Co-op down the town, and it's where you go to buy stuff for farms and for painting and house stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a city that was founded on all that kind of business.
Maybe.
Again, I haven't a clue. Speculating.
Sorry.
Overruled.
I had to crack my shoulder.
He had several jobs after this taxi company job, and at the time of his arrest, he was working as a letter sorter for the United States Postal Service. But we are not dealing with the arrest right now.
No, we'll get into that
later. Back over to Tanya.
Now, so in the mid-1970s, Berkowitz, as I said, I don't have enough respect for the murderers to call them by their first names. Berkowitz began to commit violent acts. The first time he attempted to murder someone was actually with a knife, and when this failed, he switched to a handgun and began his year-long crime spree throughout the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. His preferred victims were young females, mostly white women with long, dark, wavy hair. The majority of his crimes were committed against 2 victims, and he was known to revisit the scenes of his crimes as well. So he liked to go back and, I suppose, relive it and all that.
Yes, as a lot of them seem to do in some way, shape or form.
Exactly. So I suppose now we're going to dive into the actual
incidents.
The murders and the attacks.
The fireman stabbing was the introduction one. So David claimed that he committed his first attack on Christmas Eve 1975 at the age of only 22. And as Tanya said, he used a hunting knife to stab 2 women in Co-op City. The first alleged victim, a Hispanic woman, was never identified by the police. That's quite sad.
That's awful.
Well, it's awful that it happens, obviously, but also to be unidentified.
Yeah.
The second victim was Michelle Foreman, a 15-year-old sophomore at Truman High School.
Oh my God, a child.
Yeah, who he stabbed 6 times on a bridge near Dreiser Loop. Michelle's injuries had her hospitalised for a week, so luckily she survived. David was not suspected of these crimes, and he soon relocated to an apartment in Yonkers.
Okay, I love Yonkers. I love just that there's a place called Yonkers.
No, my aunt.
Oh, why did you whisper that?
I don't know.
That's secret information.
Don't tell anybody. Jack, you've just knocked over the dust
in Yonkers.
She also does art. Check it out.
So the first shooting that was actually officially attributed to Berkowitz happened in the Pelham Bay area of the Bronx. On July 29th, 1976, Donna Luria, who was 18 and an emergency medical technician, was sitting in a car with her friend Jody Valenti, who was 19 and a nurse.
I love their names.
Honestly, the names in this are amazing. I don't know why we're so obsessed with names, but we are. So it was about 1:10 in the morning, and they were talking about their evening as they had been at a newly opened club. Donna opened the door to leave Jodie's car and noticed a man was quickly approaching them. She was startled and said, "Now what the..." but never completed her sentence because the man had pulled a gun from the paper bag he was carrying, crouched down and fired 3 bullets at the girls. He then turned and quickly walked away. Donna had been shot once in the head and died instantly, and Jodie had been shot in the thigh, but she was okay apart from that. The 3rd bullet missed both women. Jodie later said that she did not know the man or recognise him, but she described him as a white male in his 30s, about 5'8", about 200 pounds or 91 kg, and his hair was short, dark and curly. Donna's father also said a man of this description had been sitting in a yellow compact car nearby because Jodie was dropping Donna home. They were parked near Donna's home. And neighbours also said that they had seen a yellow compact car cruising around the area for hours before the shooting. So he was obviously driving around.
Spoiler, his car is yellow.
It was yellow, just in case you didn't know.
We'll confirm it later, but that was his car.
So he was obviously kind of driving around waiting for the opportunity.
For someone that fit whatever.
Yeah.
We love that.
We hate that. We don't love that.
No, much sarcasm. Mucho sarcasmo.
Ooh, mucho sarcasmo.
So then we're on to the Denaro and Keenan shooting. So on the 23rd of October 1976, a similar shooting took place in a secluded residential area of, what a name, Flushing, Queens, next to Bowen Park. 20-year-old Carl Denaro, Citibank security guard, and 18-year-old Rosemary Keenan, a Queen's College student, were sitting in Rosemary's parked car when the window suddenly shattered. Carl later said, quote, "I felt the car exploded," unquote. Rosemary quickly started the car and sped away to find help. Both panicked. They did not realise that someone had been shooting at them, even though Carl was bleeding from a bullet wound to his head. Rosemary had only superficial injuries from the broken glass, thank God. But Carl eventually needed a metal plate to replace a part of his skull. But obviously, luckily, they both survived. Yeah. And unfortunately, neither Carl nor Rosemary saw the attacker. Police concluded that the bullets that were embedded in Rosemary's car were from a .44 caliber, but the bullets were so deformed that they thought it was unlikely they could ever be linked to a specific weapon.
Yeah.
As Carl had shoulder-length hair, police later speculated that the shooter may have mistaken him for a woman. Rosemary's father, talk about choosing your victims. Rosemary's father was a 20-year veteran police detective with the New York City Police Department. So obviously this caused an intense investigation. Just like with the Laura Valenti shooting, it seemed that there was no tangible motive for the shooting. Therefore, police made little progress with the case. Many details of the Gennaro Keenan shooting were very like the Laura Valenti case, but initially police did not associate them with one another, partly due to the shootings occurring in different boroughs, therefore meaning they were investigated by different police precincts.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I guess there's not enough communication between them because you can't communicate over every case, so you get nothing
exactly. done. Now, the next shooting was on November 26th, 1976. 16-year-old Donna DeMasi and 18-year-old Joanne Lamino were walking home from a movie. It was just after midnight and they were chatting on the porch of Joanne's house when a young man wearing military fatigues approached them.
What's a military fatigue?
It's like a military uniform.
Oh, okay.
So like, what's the fucking word? Oh my god, why can't I think of the word? Like the camouflage. Yeah. So like Noah, when Noah's in his full dress, it's it's an army uniform, military uniform. Shout out to my sister's boyfriend for being in the army.
And shout out to them being lucky cunts over in fucking Lanzarote.
Yeah, living
I'm
their
jealous.
best lives.
Have a drink for me, please.
So he was wearing military fatigues and using a high-pitched voice, he began asking them for directions before producing a gun and shooting each of the girls once. As they were falling to the ground, he fired several more times, hitting the apartment building, and then he ran away. One neighbour who had heard the gunshots came rushing out and saw a blonde man running past holding a gun in his left hand. Donna had been shot in the wound, but shot in the wound.
It's got an image of him running away, and you know the song, don't look suspicious. Don't look suspicious. I like how I said, you know the song when it's actually out of a TV show, but anywho.
So anyway, Donna was not shot in the wound. She was shot in the neck, but the wound was not life-threatening. Joanne was shot...
So many of these people getting shot into the head and the neck and stuff, and still surviving.
He's not a good shot. Now, Joanne, unfortunately, was shot in the back, and after being hospitalised in serious condition, she was left paraplegic.
Oh, fuck.
Now, I did have to Google just to make sure I had this correct, but paraplegism or being a paraplegic is when you are paralysed from kind of the waist down. It's the lower limbs, the lower extremities, which is just awful that happened to her.
It's like a permanent reminder for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we move on to the 30th of January 1977 at around 12:40 a.m. So in the night, Christine Freund.
I would say
Freund. When I saw it, I just kept thinking of Sigmund Freud.
Yeah, so did I.
Christine Freund, aged 26, and her fiancé John Deal, or DL, I don't know, aged 30, were sitting in John's car near the Forest Hills Long Island Railroad Station in Queens. They were getting ready to drive to a dance hall after seeing the movie Rocky.
Nice.
Suddenly, 3 gunshots penetrated the car, and in a panic, John drove away to get help. John suffered minor superficial injuries, but Christine was shot twice and died hours later at the hospital, and neither of them had seen the attacker. The police made the first public acknowledgement that the Freund Deal shooting was like previous incidents, and that the crimes might be connected. All the victims had been attacked with .44 caliber bullets, and the targets of the shooting seemed to be young women with long, dark hair. And then Richard Conlon, an NYPD sergeant, stated that police were leaning towards a connection in all of these cases. Composite sketches were released of the black-haired Laura Valenti suspect and the blonde Lamino DeMasi suspect, and Sergeant Conlon noted that the police were looking for more than one suspect at that time.
Okay. Now, this next one is quite short. On March 8th, 1977, at about 7:30 p.m, 19-year-old Virginia Voskerichian, I think that's how you say it, Voskerichian, was walking home from school when she was suddenly confronted by an armed man. Now, in a bid to defend herself from the gun, Virginia lifted up her books as like a makeshift shield.
To try and, at least it would slow the bullet down, if anything.
Yeah, but unfortunately the bullet did pass through the books and she was shot in the head and killed.
So, like, you can see he's getting better is the word, but that's not...
I wouldn't even say better.
Or either better or just luckier.
Opportunistic. It was lucky, like...
But I mean better as in aiming-wise.
Yeah. Well,
because, like, he's starting to actually... Like, maybe they're not all dying, but he is starting to hit them better.
Yeah,
and there is more...
Is there a phone ringing?
Death starting to... No, I think it vibrated though, alright. So, then... very short section to do with press and publicity. So in a press conference that was held on the 10th of March 1977, NYPD officials and Mayor Abraham Beam announced that the same 44 caliber isn't it?
Abraham Beam.
It's just different. That the same 44 Bulldog revolver had fired the shots that killed Lauria and how did you say that?
Voskerichian.
That sounds right to me, so what she said. However, in official documents that were later revealed, it said that while police strongly suspected that the same 44 Bulldog had been used in the shootings, the evidence was inconclusive. The crimes were discussed... I need to slap my head off the table. The crimes were discussed more or less every day by the local media. Circulation increased drastically for the New York Post and the Daily News, both tabloid newspapers with graphic crime reporting and commentary. And foreign media also featured many of the reports. I didn't include what foreign media is, but it was on the front page of, I think there was like a certain type of religious newspaper, I think, okay. Like one targeted at a certain religious community, the Vatican, and I think there was another one in the Vatican or in Italy that were mentioned specifically, and I think I want to say Slovakian, I think, newspaper, but somewhere around there anyway, that I remember reading, but I didn't go into detail on that, so that's that in the press and publicity.
Now, so following that was March. On April 17th, 1977, Alexander Esau, I think that's how you say it.
That's how I would say it as well, yeah.
Esau, a 20-year-old tow truck operator, and Valentina Suriani, an 18-year-old college student, aspiring actress and model, were sitting in a car borrowed from Alexander's brother on the Hutchinson River Parkway service road in the Bronx. They were about a block away from Valentina's home and only a few miles away from the Luria Valenti shooting scene. Someone living in a building nearby heard 4 gunshots and called the police. Valentina, who was in the driver's seat, had been shot once, and Alexander had been shot twice. Both were shot in the head. Unfortunately, Valentina died at the scene, and Alexander died several hours later in the hospital. Police said that the weapon used in this crime was the same one that they had suspected in the earlier shootings.
Okay, so again, linked up again.
Yes.
So then we have, moving on to letters. So police found a handwritten letter near the bodies of Esau and Suriani, written mostly in block capitals with a few lowercase letters. It was addressed to NYPD Captain Joseph Borelli. In this letter, David Berkowitz identified himself as Son of Sam for the first time. The press had previously named the killer the 44 Calibre Killer because of his choice of a weapon, and at first the letter was withheld from the public, but some of its contents were revealed to the press, and the name Son of Sam quickly replaced the name the 44 Calibre Killer. I suppose hence why a lot of people nowadays would straight away reference
the
Son of Sam. The letter expressed the killer's determination to continue his work and taunted police for their futile efforts to capture him. And now I'm going to read the letter. Now, my pronunciation might be weird at points, but that's because his spelling is weird, so I'm going to try and pronounce it how it's wrote. Now, my inner grammar freak might autocorrect it, we'll see. So the full letter read, I am deeply hurt by your calling me a weeman hater. I am not. But
Sorry.
A weeman, yeah, not a woman, a weeman hater.
I'm a weeman. I'm a weeman.
He's a wee man.
I'm a wumps.
I am not, but I am a monster. I am the son of Sam. I am a little brat. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. Sometimes he ties me up to the back of the house. Other times he locks me in the garage. Sam loves to drink blood. Go out and kill, commands Father Sam. Behind our house, some rest. Mostly young, raped and slaughtered, their blood drained. Just bones now.
Lovely. Papa
Sam keeps me locked in the attic too. I can't get out, but I look out the attic window and watch the world go by. How can you not get out if you're killing people? But anyhow, I watch the world go by. I feel like an outsider. I am on a different wavelength than everybody else, programmed to kill. However, to stop me, you must kill me. Attention all pleased. That was me, not him. That was my bad grammar. Shoot me first, shoot to kill or else. Keep out of my way or you will die. Papa Sam is old now. He needs some blood to preserve his youth. He has had too many heart attacks. Oh, me hoot, it hurts, sonny boy. I miss my pretty princess most of all. She's resting in Our Lady's house, but I'll see her soon. I am the monster, Beelzebub, the chubby behemoth. I love to hunt, prowling the streets, looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. I must be the water they drink. I live for the hunt, my life, blood for Papa.
Blood for Papa?
And then, Mr. Borelli, sir, I don't want to kill anymore. No, sir, no more, but I must honour thy father. I want to make love to the world. I love people. I don't belong on earth. Return me to Yahoos. To the people of Queens, I love you, and I want to wish on earth. No, wait, I want to wish all of you a happy Easter. May God bless you in this life and in the next, and for now I say goodbye and good night. Please, let me haunt you with these words. I'll be back, to be interpreted as bang, 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 yours in murder, Mr. Monster. Like, what? Yeah.
Blood for Papa.
At the time, the police had speculated that the author of the letter may be familiar with Scottish English. The phrase, me hoot it hurt, sonny boy, was taken as a Scottish accented version of my heart it hurt, sonny boy. The police also theorised that the shooter blamed a dark-haired nurse for his father's death due to the too many heart attacks phrase, and the facts that Lauria was a medical technician and Valenti was studying to be a nurse. So that kind of played into maybe them linking that. The unusual attitude the killer had toward the police and the media gained widespread scrutiny. Psychologists noted that many serial killers they like corn, gain gratification by evading pursuers and observers. The feeling of control over the media, law enforcement, and even in entire populations, I suppose by striking that fear, provides them with a source of social power. After police consulted with multiple psychiatrists, they released a psychological profile of their suspect on the 26th of May 1977. The killer was described as neurotic, which is actually a terminology that's not used anymore. But at the time it was, so he was described as neurotic and who probably had paranoid schizophrenia and that he believed he was a victim of demonic possession. Beautiful. That was their little profile.
Beautiful.
And then, Tanya?
So, I also have a letter. Mine is bare long as well. On May 30th...
It's funny.
I haven't read it, I just copied and pasted it. So this is my first time reading it too.
I can't wait after that one, because I didn't read that one.
No, this one I think is actually a lot more well written. But anyway.
We went to a few grammar lessons.
On May 30th, 1977, Jimmy Breslin, a columnist for Daily News, received a handwritten letter from a person claiming to be the 44 Calibre Killer. It was postmarked the same day from Englewood, New Jersey.
That was good postage speed.
Yeah. Now,
wouldn't see that one on post.
No, you wouldn't see that one on post. On the back of the envelope, in neat handprint, were 4 precisely centred lines reading Blood and Family, Darkness and Death, Absolute Depravity, 44. Now, as I said, the letter is really long, so bear with me as I read. My voice is also slightly fucked. I make no apologies for that. Hello from the gutters of NYC, which are filled with dog manure, vomit, stale wine, urine and blood.
Why is he in the sewers all of a sudden?
Hello from the sewers of NYC, which swallow up these delicacies when they are washed away by the sweeper trucks. Hello from the cracks in the sidewalks of NYC, and from the ants that dwell in these cracks and feed in the dried blood of the dead that has settled into the cracks. JB, Jimmy Breslin, I'm just dropping you a line. To let you know that I appreciate your interest in those recent and horrendous 44 killings. I also want to tell you that I read your column daily and I find it quite informative. Tell me, Jim, what will you have for July 29th? You can forget about me if you like, because I don't care for publicity. However, you must not forget Donna Luria, and you cannot let people forget her either. She was a very, very sweet girl, but Sam's a thirsty lad and he won't let me stop killing until he gets his fill of blood. Mr. Breslin, sir, don't think that because you haven't heard from me for a while that I went to sleep. No, rather I am still here, like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest. Anxious to please Sam. I love my work. Now the void has been filled. Perhaps we shall meet face to face someday, or perhaps I will be blown away by cops with smoking 38s. Whatever, if I shall be fortunate enough to meet you, I will tell you all about Sam if you like, and I will introduce you to him. His name is Sam the Terrible. Not knowing what the future holds, I shall say farewell, and I will see you at the next job. Or should I say, you will see my handiwork at the next job. Remember Miss Luria. Thank you. Thank you. In their blood and from the gutter, Sam's creation. 44, here are some of the names to help you along. Forward them to the inspector for use by NCIC. The Duke of Death, the Wicked King Wicker, the 22 Disciples of Hell, John Wheaties, rapist and suffocator of young girls. P.S. Please inform all the detectives working the slaying to remain. P.S. JB, please inform all the detectives working the case that I wish them the best of luck. Keep 'em digging. Drive on. Think positive.
Drive on. Think positive.
Get off your butts. Knock on coffins, etc. Upon my capture, I promise to buy all the guys working the case a new pair of shoes if I can get up the money. Son of Sam.
Well, that was something.
Mm-hmm. Now, underneath the Son of Sam's signature was a sketch of several symbols combined together, almost like a logo of some sort.
Okay.
The writer's
He's developing a brand with his positive vibes.
Positive. Think positive. The writer's question of what will you have for July 29th was perceived as a threat, as this would be the anniversary of the Luria Valenti shooting. When Breslin notified police, they thought the letter was from someone with knowledge of the shooting. The Breslin letter, when compared to the crudely written first letter that Josh just read, was considered by police to be more sophisticated in wording and presentation. They believed it had possibly come from someone who had access to an art studio or a similar professional location, someone who had experience in calligraphy, printing, or graphic design. The unusual lettering even had police thinking the writer could be working as a comic book letterer, and they actually asked staff of DC Comics if any of them recognised the lettering.
Okay.
A week after receiving the letter, the Daily News published it, but withheld portions of the letter at the request of police, and Breslin urged the killer to surrender. The article actually made that day's paper the highest selling edition of the Daily News to this day.
That's crazy.
It sold more than 1.1 million copies. Police got thousands of tips based on the letter, but none were of any help to the investigation. Because all of the shooting victims at that point had long dark hair, so many women began dyeing and changing their hair that there was actually a shortage of hair dye and wigs.
You know what? I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
To be completely honest.
But as well, there was a reference there.
But imagine the general population, so many people feeling so unsafe. The
Wicked King Wicker in the letter. That's from a movie. I can't fucking remember the name of the movie, and I never wrote it down, but the police actually screened that movie and watched that movie. So they all had a little sit down, they watched a movie.
For investigative purposes.
Yeah.
But I actually don't know, did you cover in your research, and if it did, we won't say it till later, but I can't wait, if you haven't found out yet, who Sam is in these letters.
I have not found out. I can't, what? You know who Sam is? Okay, I'm looking forward. Well, I shouldn't be looking forward to that, but I'm interested.
Who this Sam is that's telling him to kill and get the blood and all this crack. It's just, I don't know.
I bet it's his dog.
Oh yeah, then we're back to the shootings. More shootings.
He took a little break to write some letters.
Yeah, practice his calligraphy. On the 26th of June 1977, 20-year-old Sal Lupo and 17-year-old Judy Placido, I would say Placido, but I think that's because placebo. That's what I was thinking as well. Had left the Eliphas discotheque in Bayside, Queens, and were sitting in Sal's parked car at around 3 a.m. when 3 gunshots exploded through the vehicle. Sal was wounded in his right forearm, and Judy was shot in the right temple, the shoulder and the back of the neck. Luckily, both victims survived their injuries. Sal told the police that they had been discussing the Son of Sam case only moments before the shooting.
Oh my God.
Now that I thought that blew my mind. Yeah. I was like, imagine discussing something and then being a victim to it literally within minutes.
Within minutes. That's fucking crazy.
Now, I also thought it was a miracle that she managed to take a bullet to the right temple and not die.
But a few of his victims were shot in the head and did
So it seems like his aim is getting better, but his luck is getting worse in terms of the victim's luck is getting better.
Or maybe he's just got defective bullets.
And as in the previous shooting, Sal nor Judy saw their attacker. But 2 witnesses reported seeing a tall, dark-haired man in a leisure suit fleeing from the area.
Is that like a tracksuit?
No. One of the witnesses claimed to have seen him leave in a car and even gave a partial license plate number. A leisure suit is... Do you know those ones? So, like, it looks like a suit in terms of suit pants and suit jumpery top kind of thing. But, like, it's normally, like, really outlandish. Like, as in it could be covered in, like, let's say, yellow sunflowers, the pants and
like
and
all
they
the
both
ones
match.
you see in the 70s and 80s,
Yeah, but I'm like, how ballsy do you have to be to commit a crime wearing that? You're going to be seen.
Yeah. You can't be missed.
Literally.
What a mad bitch.
Over to you, my dude.
So,
my
dudette. As the first anniversary of the Luria Valenti shooting approached, police established a large dragnet based on past crimes of the killer in Queens and the Bronx. Now, a dragnet is...
Not drag queen related.
No, basically they set up roadblocks and things like that in an attempt to stop the next murder.
And at least if it did happen, they might be able to pick a suspect from one of the stops.
But unfortunately for the police, the killer they set up a dragnet in Queens, and it wasn't the Bronx. It was one of the other boroughs, but I can't remember which one.
Queens,
the Bronx, and...
There was one other one that's been mentioned a good few times, so my brain just is not remembering it.
It is Brooklyn.
That's it.
So I made a little boo-boo here somewhere, but yeah, so they set up their roadblocks in... You pause for a second, because I just want to verify some information here.
We will be right back, guys. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. I just want to verify...
Why won't it pause? I'm not even going to cut this out.
Okay. Right, we're back. So... I fixed it. I wanted to make sure I wasn't spreading misinformation. So the dragnet was set up in Queens and the Bronx, but unfortunately for the police, the killer attacked next in Brooklyn. Now, on the morning of July 31st, 1977, Secretary Stacy Moskowitz and clothes salesman Robert Violante, who were both 20, were sitting in Robert's car. They were parked under a streetlight near a city park in Bath Beach. It was their first date and they were kissing when a man approached the car. Once he got within about 3 feet of the passenger door, he fired 4 rounds, hitting both Stacy and Robert in the head. He then ran away, as always. Robert ended up losing his left eye, but survived. But unfortunately, Stacy died. And Stacy, interestingly enough, was also the only blonde victim of the Son of Sam. Now that same night, Detective John Falatico was woken at home and told to report to the 10th Homicide Division at the 60th Precinct Station House in Coney Island. When he got there, he was told he had 2 weeks to work the Moskowitz-Violante case as a normal murder investigation, and if it wasn't solved in that time frame, it would then be passed to the Son of Sam task force.
So attributed and...
Yeah. So basically he was given an opportunity to solve it as a normal murder investigation, and then if he couldn't, it would be passed to the Son of Sam task force.
Okay. So guys, quick word from our sponsors.
Josh is going out tonight.
Yeah, it is
I'm not, 'cause I'm dying.
It is a birthday. So if you can hear the drinks pouring, that's the first sponsor. That is Malibu. And then this is our second sponsor. Red TK Lemonade.
I'm driving, so I'm just having the TK.
Just the TK.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand...
I've got a dog to get home.
I call this being time savvy.
Having your pre-drinks while you're recording.
Anywho. So, then we move on to suspicion.
Suspicion?
Dun, dun, dun. I need to burp, actually. Bear with.
Oh, God.
There we go.
I probably didn't hear it over my laugh anyway.
I hope not. At the scene of the Moskowitz-Violante shooting, local resident Cecilia Davis was walking her dog when she saw Michael Catania, a patrol officer, ticketing a car that was parked near a fire hydrant. Just after the traffic police had left the area, a young man walked past Cecilia from the area of the car, and he appeared to study her as he passed. Cecilia was concerned as she noticed the man had some sort of dark object So she ran to her home hearing shots fired behind her in the street.
Oh my God.
Cecilia stayed quiet about her experience for 4 days, but then contacted the police. The police checked every car that had been given a ticket in the area that night. One of the cars investigated was David Berkowitz's yellow 1970 Ford Galaxy. On the 9th of August 1977... Oh yeah, it is, the 9th. James Justice, I don't know, is it Justice or Justice, because it's Justis, but I'm going to say Justice, which I think is absolutely hilarious considering he's a detective with the NYPD.
Detective Justice?
It was from birth.
His name is Detective Justice.
He was assigned that job when he came out the womb.
The uterus.
So, Detective James Justice phoned the Yonkers Police Department to ask them to arrange an interview with David Berkowitz. The Yonkers Police Dispatcher, Wheat Carr...
What a name.
I know.
Oh my God, the names.
I'm literally allergic.
Yeah, you are.
I'm intolerant. First took James's call. So, yeah. And this actually happened to be the daughter of Sam Carr and sister of David's alleged cult associates, John and Michael Carr.
Wait, so Wheat is a woman?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So as soon as James mentioned David Berkowitz to Wheat, she said, "Let me tell you about him. I know him. He lives right behind me." She also told Detective Justice that David had shot and wounded their black Labrador, Harvey.
He shot the dog?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's lucky that dog
And
survived.
that Harvey was her father, Sam's dog. As soon as James heard the name Sam, he felt strongly that David Berkowitz was their suspect. Or as Criminal Minds would put it, the unsolved.
He's the unsolved.
Also, I am loving the fact that Criminal Minds is back now.
Woo!
I need to watch it.
Same.
I think there's only 1 or 2 episodes out. Where is my... Hi, Bella. The dogs are just coming over.
I know what I'm watching tonight.
Bella's like, let me in the podcast. I'm like, girl, it's not a video. So, Bella. Stop. Detective James Justice asked Yonkers Police to help track down David. According to Yonkers Police Sergeant Mike Novotny, the department had their own suspicions about David in connection with strange crimes in their jurisdiction, which were referred to in one of the Son of Sam letters, which I apparently wrote down as Son of Sam, but Son of Sam letters. Yonkers investigators even told James that David may be the son of Sam, so, like, Yonkers were already kind of like,
Suspicious.
And now, over to you.
So, on August 10th, the day after my birthday of 1977, when I was not even born.
My mother wasn't even born.
Oh, my dad was 7. Yeah, he's 7.
Go on,
and
Tony Razzle Dazzle.
my mother was 5.
Funf. Sechs.
She was...
No, wait, 7.
7?
7 is 7. Funf is 5. But first I accidentally said Zex, which is 6.
I was going to say shock agus cuig.
Sha.
Tá sé shock agus tá sí cuig. So on August 10th, 1977...
Welcome to the bilingual, multilingual podcast.
I forgot we were recording for a minute. So the police investigated Berkowitz's car while it was parked outside his apartment building at 35 Pine Street, Yonkers. There was a gun in clear view in the back seat, so the police searched the car.
Probable cause.
So the police searched the car and found a duffel bag full of ammunition, maps of the crime scenes, and a threatening letter addressed to Inspector Timothy Dowd of the Son of Sam Task Force. They decided to wait for Berkowitz to leave his apartment in case there was...
Excuse the rattling there, that was me moving.
Are you done?
No, I'm not. The dog keeps going over to the water and it's empty and I feel bad. But continue talking, I'm listening.
Right. So
he's already pissed inside.
Oh, Jack.
It's okay, buddy.
So the police decided to wait for Berkowitz to leave his apartment in case there was like a violent confrontation in the building's narrow hallway. They also wanted to obtain a search warrant for the apartment, and they were very concerned. He's lapping that water up. We'll just wait for Jack to finish hydrating.
Yeah, so he's a thirsty boy. And the way he drinks as well.
He's very aggressive.
Yeah. But he'll stare at it for a solid minute before he starts drinking because I don't think he can see it.
That's because he's half blind, Josh.
Yeah.
Put a rock in his water.
I think he's 3/4 blind. I was thinking that, but I can't find a nice rock.
That's what I had to do for the cats because they weren't drinking enough water.
He's drinking too much water.
So anyway, I'm just going to talk over him. So
sorry, viewers, listeners.
So they were also worried that if they went in and arrested him at his apartment, that their search...
Sorry, I can't.
This is a serious matter, Joshua. He's still going to take the water away from him. He's going to get sick.
I'm just laughing because I'm imagining if it was me listening to a podcast and all I could hear in the background was... Like, he doesn't stop.
He doesn't.
Oh, he's done. Right, go on. I can contain my laughter now.
Okay. So, they were worried about a violent confrontation in the building's narrow hallways, and they were also worried that if they... Bella's much quieter. If they arrested him at the apartment, that their search of the apartment would be challenged in court, and they obviously didn't want that. They wanted to make the
everything
case...
to be
They wanted the case to be as solid as possible.
Cross the T's, dot the I's.
Now, so the gun in the back seat had given them cause to search the vehicle, but owning a gun was legal in New York. There was no special permit needed or anything like that. Now, when Berkowitz left the building at 10 p.m, the search warrant still hadn't arrived. When he entered his car, Detective John Filotico approached the driver's side and pointed a gun at Berkowitz's temple, while Detective Sergeant William Gardella pointed his gun from the passenger side. A paper bag with a .44 caliber bulldog revolver matching the
Bingo.
Bingo bongo.
Bingo, what's his name?
Matching the one indicated by ballistics tests from the past scenes was found next to Berkowitz in the car.
Vroom vroom, I'm in Mim's car.
I'm in Berkowitz's car. Now, when Berkowitz was, like, when he realised that there was guns pointed at him, apparently he said in a flat tone, "Well, you got me." You got me. Now, it is also possible that he said, "Well, you got me. How come it took you such a long time?" When searching the apartment, police found it was a fucking mess. There was satanic graffiti on the walls. They also discovered diaries that he had kept since the age of 21. 3 nearly complete stenographer's notebooks where Berkowitz would meticulously note hundreds of arsons that he claims to have committed throughout New York City. Some speculate this number may be over 1,400. Loved a bit of fire.
To say the least.
You should always watch out for the people that love fire. That love setting fires. Now, Berkowitz was taken to a Yonkers police station for a brief while before being sent directly to the 60th precinct in Coney Island, which was the home base of the Son of Sam task force. At about 1 a.m, Mayor Abraham Beam arrived to see the suspect personally. He got to see the mayor.
Hola.
And after a brief and silent visit, announced to the media, quote, "The people of the city of New York can rest easy because of the fact that the police have captured the man whom they believe to be the Son of Sam." Soon after Berkowitz was arrested, the address of his apartment building was actually changed in an attempt to end its notoriety as the home of the Son of Sam.
Okay.
Now, the address was listed online, but I didn't put it in
because,
it's years ago and there's new people living there and I don't want to be doxing anyone.
True. So, then we move on to confession.
His confession. Confess!
In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
I confess that I'm not religious.
David Berkowitz was interrogated for around 30 minutes on the morning of August 11th. David quickly confessed to his crimes and expressed interest in pleading guilty. John Keenan was the lead investigator and was the one who took the confession. During questioning, David had claimed that his neighbour's dog was one of the reasons he killed. He claimed that the dog demanded the blood of pretty young girls.
Stop now.
David said that the Sam mentioned in the original letter was his previous neighbour Sam Carr, and that Harvey, Sam's Labrador, was possessed by an ancient demon which issued irresistible commands that David kill people.
So I was close when I said,
You were.
I bet it's his dog or something. It was his neighbour's dog.
A few weeks after his capture, David was allowed to communicate with the press. In a letter to the New York Post dated the 19th of September 1977, he referred to his original story of demonic possession, but closed with a warning that has been interpreted by some investigators as an admission that he had criminal accomplices. The closing of the letter reads, There are other sons out there, God help the world." At a press conference held in February 1979, David Berkowitz stated that his previous claims of demonic possession were a hoax. David later stated in a series of meetings with David Abrahamson, his court-appointed psychiatrist, that he had thought about murder to get revenge on a world he felt had rejected and hurt him for quite a long time. Are you okay, hon?
Josh's stepdad's taking off his shoes upstairs. Now, on to the sentencing. So, despite the fact that 3 different mental health examinations had determined Berkowitz to be competent to stand trial, his defence lawyers advised him to enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. But Berkowitz...
I wonder, can you enter a plea of guilty but plead insanity? Be like, I want to plead guilty, but I definitely did do that out of insanity. Like, that's not who I want to be, but I do take responsibility for doing it. In hindsight, kind of a vibe. Do you get me?
Someone probably, surely. I mean, if you completely
like, if you wanted to plead, if you wanted to say,
I
do believe that I was insane at the time,
but I still accept the fact
actions. That even though insane, I did it.
I would imagine so. Like, I don't see why not.
Then again, I guess if you're insane, how can you be legally held responsible for something that's technically out of your control if you are insane?
I don't know. I guess we'll never find out.
But that's just something to ponder on.
I guess we'll never know. So Berkowitz refused to enter a plea of not guilty by insanity. And it said that he appeared very calm in court on May 8th, 1978, as he pleaded guilty to all of the shootings. 2 weeks later, at his sentencing, Berkowitz caused a scene by trying to jump from a window of the 7th floor courtroom after he had been restrained. He repeatedly chanted, "Stacey was a whore."
Oh my God.
And "I'd kill her again, I'd kill them all again." As a result of this, the court ordered another examination for another mental health examination before sentencing could continue. Because
like surely someone that's some bit sane would not say that in their court hearing, for God's sake.
For the murder of Stacey and several others. Now, during this 4th evaluation, Berkowitz drew a man surrounded by loads of walls and wrote, "I am not well at all." But he was ultimately found competent to stand trial once again.
Maybe he was grandstanding.
I think so. On June 12th of 1978, Berkowitz was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for each murder. These were to be served consecutively, which means one right after the motherfucking other. Mm-hmm. You ever hear that? That is a white baby. That baby is white. No. From the mountains of Caucasus. I'll have to show you that after. It's Cat Williams. So funny. And he was ordered to serve time in the Attica Correctional Facility, which is a supermax prison in upstate New York. Despite arguments from the prosecution, Berkowitz's guilty plea meant that he would be eligible for parole in 25 years.
Because he pleaded guilty?
Yeah, now I don't think he ever got parole as far as I know. I'm sure we would have heard about it.
Interesting. So, detention time. After David Berkowitz's arrest, he was initially confined to a psychiatric ward in Kings County Hospital. The staff there reported that David seemed exceptionally troubled by his new environment. The day after his sentencing, he was taken to Sing Sing Prison and then upstate to Clinton Correctional Facility for psychiatric and physical examinations. He spent 2 more months at the Central New York Psychiatric Center in Marcy, Oneida County, New York, before being admitted to Attica Prison. David Berkowitz served around 10 years in Attica until he was moved to Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, Sullivan County, New York. He remained here for many years before being transferred to Shawangunk Correctional Facility in Ulster County, New York.
Interesting.
I thought that too when I saw it. I was wondering, does that have anything to do with people that would have moved to America?
Probably, because I know there are quite a few.
Like there's a lot of places named like England as well, like New Hampshire and stuff like that.
And I'm pretty sure there's a Blackpool in England and there's a Blackpool here.
I think so. And
I'm
England,
pretty sure there's a Dublin in Texas, I think.
And there's a few Mitchellstowns as well.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's weird.
Bella, can you get out from in between my legs? The dog.
She wants to be involved.
So, anywho, in Ulster County, New York, Berkowitz described his time in Attica Correctional Facility as a nightmare. Well, I don't think it's supposed to be fun, but anywho. Yeah. An attempt was made on David's life in 1979. The left side of his neck was slashed from front to back, causing a wound that required more than 50 stitches to close. So that's a big wound. Berkowitz would not identify his attacker and claimed that he was grateful for the attack as it brought a sense of justice. In David's own words, quote, "the punishment I deserve," unquote.
I won't disagree.
So he seems to be becoming more sane, I guess, or something. I don't know. I don't know what way to put it. And on to you, my dear.
So, in 1987, Berkowitz became an evangelical Christian. His moment of conversion apparently came about after he read Psalm 34:6 from a Bible given to him by a fellow inmate. He said he no longer wants to be referred to as the son of Sam, but instead, the son of hope.
Hope.
The son of hope. Just let that sink in.
Until he starts going around resurrecting all the people he killed, I'm not going by that.
Now, as far as I know from my research, Psalm 34:6 reads, quote, "The poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of his troubles." I did have a little bit of trouble finding that because there's so many different versions of the Bible. I don't know what version he was reading.
So a pinch of salt, but something around that, surely.
Something around that. I think it's all fairly similar. It's
yeah, there has
the
to
wording
be like
is different.
deviations maybe as well.
Now, soon after being sent to prison, this is so random, Berkowitz invited an exorcist named Malachi Martin, which is also a great name, to help him compose an autobiography. Now, Malachi Martin did not accept this offer, so Berkowitz developed his autobiography in later years with the help of fellow evangelicalists, or evangelicals, I don't know what the correct word is. His statements were released as a 1998 interview video called Son of Hope, and a more extensive work was released as a book in 2006 called Son of Hope, The Prison Journals of David Berkowitz. He doesn't receive any money or royalties from any sales of these works, and he continued to write essays on faith and repentance for evangelical websites. A church group maintains a website on behalf of Berkowitz as he's not allowed access to a computer. He stays involved with the prison ministry and regularly counsels troubled inmates. While he was in the Sullivan facility, he pursued education and graduated with honours. Now, it wasn't specific on whether he pursued education as a degree or whether he pursued education in terms of getting his GED or whatever.
Yeah.
But whatever
But
he
I
studied,
assume seems it said graduated with honours, that it's a college level type of thing.
So do with that what you will.
So then we move on to parole hearings. As mandated by state law, David Berkowitz is entitled to a parole hearing every 2 years. However, he has consistently refused to ask for his release, at times skipping the hearings altogether.
Okay.
In 2002, before his first parole hearing, David sent a letter to George Pataki, the New York governor at the time, demanding that the hearing be cancelled. David wrote, quote, "In all honesty, I believe that I deserve to be in prison for the rest of my life. I have, with God's help, long ago come to terms with my situation, and I have accepted my punishment." Officials at the Sullivan Correctional Facility rejected his demands. I'm assuming rejected his demands to cancel the hearing.
Yeah, the hearing had to go. I suppose it would violate his human rights or something like that.
So they'd have to do it, because then if he changed his mind, he could go after them for a human rights violation. In his 2016 parole hearing at Shawagunk, New York, David said that while parole was unrealistic, he felt that he had improved himself while in prison. He added, quote, "I feel I am no risk whatsoever." Mark Heller, David's lawyer, noted that the prison staff considered David to be a model prisoner. Commissioners denied him parole, and David's most recent hearing was actually scheduled for May of 2020, but it was indefinitely delayed due to COVID-19 pandemic.
How wild is it that these murders were committed? Like, I know I've said this before about cases. Like, these murders were committed while my dad and my mum were young.
Like, these were before my mother's time.
And we could potentially see him released in our lifetime.
Yeah, because like I think there was rumours of him possibly getting a parole this year, but I looked it up and I couldn't say anything about it. So he might end up getting one next year, maybe. Now whether it'll get approved or denied, but like I feel like he does, like, it doesn't excuse anything he's done, but fate does seem to, unlike like with some people it doesn't work, some people it does, but it seems to have him finding something to believe in and hold on to appears, whether he's making it appear that way or whether it is true.
I think it does help, like, as a human being, just in general, for some people, it does help to have something to believe in.
Yeah, like I might not be religious, but I'd be spiritual.
I'm the same, and like I was religious growing up. Like as I said before, I was raised Catholic, and I wasn't like strict Catholic. We weren't going to church every Sundays, but I prayed every night up until I was maybe 7 or 8, and then
same in that sense, yeah.
And then I kind of fell out with the church when I was 14.
Basically when we knew better.
Yeah. So like I started to form my own opinion, and I was like, this is not my faith of choice.
Yeah.
And then like struggled a lot for a couple of years, and then like found my spirituality, and that it does help to have something to believe in, to kind of feel like there's a reason that we're here and there's some bigger power, I suppose.
Yeah.
But, like, obviously that's not the case with everyone. Some people don't need to have that.
Yeah, some people can be flat out atheist and get on with stuff and not need
that's fine.
it.
It's personal preference. And I think for him...
And, like, I would have considered myself atheist for years until I found spirituality. And then, to be fair, spirituality isn't a religion, so I could still consider myself atheist if I wanted to.
It's more that I don't believe that there's, like, one singular figure
well,
controlling...
Well, then again, atheism is believing in nothing at all, isn't it?
Yeah,
so like, you can't be spiritual and atheist.
So I suppose we're
But again, spiritual.
Is it agnostic?
It's just spiritual.
Is agnostic the word I'm thinking?
It probably would, because agnostic is the one where, you don't believe in a specific thing, but you believe something is there.
So I suppose we're both agnostic, I suppose.
But then anyway. I think agnostic is more so religious again, where it's like you don't believe in a specific religion. You just believe that one of them might be true, or you might take pieces from each one.
I don't know. We believe in something.
We're spiritual.
We're spiritual. We believe the universe looks after us.
Sometimes.
Sometimes she's cruel.
Sometimes she'll be teaching lessons. I don't want to fucking learn.
I don't want to learn the lesson. So, just in regards to other activities, in 2002, while the DC sniper attacks were going on in Washington, Fox News' Rita Cosby wrote to Berkowitz asking him for a comment on the sniper attacks. Berkowitz sent back a 3-page letter telling the sniper to, quote, stop hurting innocent people. Bit hypocritical, but you know. In June 2005, Berkowitz sued one of his former lawyers, Hugo Harmatz.
It sounds like something that collects animal hair.
To me, I kept almost.
It sounds like a little mat that you just pad on your clothes.
Yeah, I kept typing Carmats, as in like a mat for your car.
And I just thought of Carmex.
He sued Hugo Harmatz for misappropriation of a large number of letters, photographs, and other personal possessions. Harmatz had represented Berkowitz when he was trying to stop the National Enquirer from buying one of his letters. Harmatz then went on to self-publish his own collections of letters and memorabilia titled Dear David. He had obtained all of these letters and things from Berkowitz during consultations. Berkowitz said that he would drop the lawsuit if Harmatz signed over all profit rights to the victims' families. In 2006, the matter was settled out of court, with Harmatz agreeing to return the items and to donate part of his proceeds to the New York State Crime Victims Board.
Okay.
Now, I would assume that the families possibly didn't want anything to do with the money.
Because of why it accumulated.
Because of how...
because
it was from the murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at least some of the proceeds went to something that could help victims.
Yeah, exactly.
Of crimes.
True. Now, satanic cult accomplice claims. In 1979, David Berkowitz posted a book about witchcraft to the police in North Dakota. David had, so obviously 1979, we're going back a bit again.
Yeah.
David had underlined multiple passages and written some marginal notes, including the phrase, quote, Arliss Perry, hunted, stalked and slain, followed to Caliph, Stanford University. This was in reference to 19-year-old Arliss Perry, a Dakota newlywed who was murdered at Stanford on the 12th of October 1974. Her death and the awful abuse of her corpse in an on-campus chapel was a widely reported case. David mentioned the Arliss Perry attack in other letters, suggesting that he knew details of the case from the perpetrator himself. Local police investigators interviewed David, but by 2004 they had come to the conclusion that he had nothing of value to offer, and the Arliss Perry case was eventually solved in 2018. So, glad it got solved, but it took a long time.
A long time, but that happens more than you would think.
Yeah, our cold case is becoming not cold anymore, kind of a thing.
Yeah, like who was it that they caught?
I haven't read it properly, but there's updates about that Somerton man.
There was updates with the Somerton man, but the Golden State Killer was only caught a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it's even like BTK as well went quiet for ages.
He did.
And then peekaboo.
I'm gonna send you a floppy disk.
Yeah, because I'm stupid. So after Berkowitz's admission then to Sullivan Prison, he began to make claims he had joined a satanic cult in the spring of 1975. In 1993, he made these claims public when he announced to the press that he had killed only 3 of the Son of Sam victims, Lauria, Esau and Siriani. In his revision of events, David said that there were other shooters involved and that he had only fired the gun in the first and 6th attack. David claimed that he and several other cult members were a part of every incident by planning the events. providing surveillance of the victims and acting as lookouts and drivers at the crime scenes. David said that he could not give the names of most of his accomplices without putting his family in danger.
Does he have a family?
Well, he's got his adoptive family. I know the mother passed away, but he still has
his adoptive
the
father and his stepmother, and his half sister, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's true. And he knows he had contact with the birth mother now.
Yeah.
So one of the alleged unnamed associates was a female cult member who David claims fired the gun at Carol De Niro and Rosemary Keenan. Berkowitz said that they survived the attack due to the alleged accomplice not being familiar with the powerful recoil of a .44 Bulldog. He stated that at least 5 cult members were at the scene of the Christine Freund and John Deal shooting, but that the actual shooter was a prominent cult associate who had been brought in from outside New York with an unspecified motive. A cult member who he identified only by his nickname, Manson II. Another unnamed person was the gunman in the Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violante case, a male cult member who had come from North Dakota for the occasion, also without explanation.
Okay.
Now, bear in mind, from what I'm gathering with the dates here, all these claims were before he found religion and before he started owning up to stuff and all that. So, David did name 2 of the cult members, John and Michael Carr. The 2 men were sons of the dog owner, Sam Carr, and they lived nearby on Warburton Avenue. Both of these other sons of Sam were dead with a long time. John Carr had been killed in a shooting that was ruled as a suicide in North Dakota during 1978, and Michael Carr had been in a fatal car accident in 1979. David claimed that the shooter in the Donna DeMasi and Joanne Lumino shooting was John, and he also claimed that a Yonkers police officer was also a cult member and involved in this particular crime.
Interesting.
Berkowitz also said that Michael fired the shots at Sal Lupo and Judy Placido. I don't know why I forgot the O, but anywho, Placido. Morris Terry, an author, wrote that Michael was an active member of the Church of Scientology. At the time of David Berkowitz's arrest. He had been in possession of a list of telephone numbers, including the number for the Fort Harrison Hotel, the church's spiritual headquarters in Clearwater, Florida. I do find it interesting that one of them was ruled as a suicide and one was a car accident, because if it was a severely big cult, the 2 of those could have been staged.
A year between them.
Yeah.
Like, I know it does happen.
So it could be, like, he could be making all this up. That's completely, yeah, but it is a bit coincidental. My inner conspiracy theorist is like But yeah. And that is, whoa, fire the glasses off my face. Read no more, bitch.
Do
you know, it's...
That's interesting.
I hate to use this phrase, but it's juicy. As a conspiracy theory.
It's a juicy conspiracy theory.
But no more than a conspiracy.
So in terms of media re-examination, a journalist named John Hockenberry says that even apart from the satanic cult claims, many officials had doubts about the single shooter theory. He wrote, quote, "What most don't know about the Son of Sam case is that from the beginning, not everyone bought the idea that Berkowitz acted alone." Now, John Santucci, who was the Queen's district attorney at the time of the killings, and police investigator Mike Novotny, both expressed that they believed Berkowitz had accomplices, and NYPD officer Richard Johnson, who was involved with the original investigation, said that unresolved discrepancies in statements from witnesses and surviving victims hint at Berkowitz acting with someone else. He said, quote, "Why are there 3 cars, 5 different descriptions, different heights, different shapes, different sizes of the perpetrator? Somebody else was there," end quote. Donna Luria's father and others have voiced their belief in the satanic cult theory, while survivor Carol De Niro said that he believed more than one person was involved, but he could not prove the cult theory. His conclusion rests on his criticism of Berkowitz's confession to police as totally false. So Carol De Niro thinks that Berkowitz's confession was totally made up, totally false.
The whole thing? Or the satanic cult part?
I think in terms of because he believes in the
satanic cult thing.
He believes that there was more than one shooter. But I think that he believes the confession is false in terms of Berkowitz covering for his accomplices. So false in terms of him accepting responsibility for everything, all of it. Now, Deal recalls physically bumping into Berkowitz outside the Wine Gallery restaurant as he was making his way out with Freund. But Berkowitz told police that he had passed within a few feet of them just before they entered the car. Deal remains firm that he and Freund saw no one on their way to the car. like we'll say in the car park, and that it would have been physically impossible for Berkowitz to sneak up on them with the way the car was parked and how quickly they had gotten to the car. And so Deal believes that he and Freund were shot by somebody else.
Okay.
Journalist Maury Terry is what he was down as for me, but you said Morris Terry, but I'm going to call him Maury.
Did I say that? I don't remember.
It was Morris, I think, in yours, or I could have misheard you. But journalist Maury Terry published a series of investigative articles for Gannett newspapers.
Oh yeah, it was Maurice Terry in mine.
All right, well, I'm calling him Maury. For Gannett newspapers in 1979. These challenged the official finding of the lone gunman theory in the case. Though police vigorously denied the article, it did spread far and wide and it was openly discussed. The articles were later turned into a book. And thanks to these reports of accomplices and satanic cult activity, the Son of Sam case was reopened by Yonkers police in 1996. But no new charges were ever filed and the investigation was suspended due to lack of findings. However, it does actually remain open.
And so I suppose that's to there being other people involved.
Yeah. Now, in 2021, Maury Terry's work was used as the basis for a Netflix series titled...
Oh, I've not watched that yet.
Me either. Titled The Sons of Sam, A Descent into Darkness. From prison, Berkowitz continued to double down and add details to his claims of demonic possession. In a series of videos released in 2015, he said that the voice he heard was that of Samhain, a druid devil, and the true origin of Son of Sam. So I swear to God, if he's pronouncing it Samhain, I'm going to fly over to Attica and I'm going to punch him in the face myself. He added that it was never a dog and that detail had been added by the media. So he's now saying that it was Samhain, not Samhain. I'm sorry, it just bugs me. Same as like, do you know how they pronounce Bealtaine?
Bealtaine, isn't it? Bealtaine.
Beltane.
Oh, I've heard that before.
It's Bealtaine. Lunasa, Bealtaine, Mehev.
We'll forgive them simply because they're not Irish.
Yeah, look, it's tough when you don't speak the language.
Because it is a fucking mouthful of a language.
Do you know what? Right, do you know what? I understand it's a mouthful of a language if you've not been raised learning the language or speaking the language. It's difficult. You're not, like, it's the same as if, like, I struggled with like, my case for next week is a German case. I'm going to struggle with pronunciations with that.
Yeah.
But if German listeners correct me, I will accept that I have said it wrong. What bugs me is the people on TikTok
that argue that it's Samhain.
That argue that it's Samhain. Like, it's my language. It's my native... Well, it's not my native language because I don't speak it fluently, but I was raised...
It's the language of my native land.
Speak it. It's Samhain. Anyway, that's that.
Oh, that's that. Okay, so now we move on to skeptics. So David's later claims were dismissed by many. Breslin rejected David's story of satanic cult accomplices, stating that when they talked to David Berkowitz that night, he recalled everything step by step. The guy has 1,000% recall and that's it. He's the guy and there's nothing else to look at. Other skeptics include Johnny Douglas, a former FBI profiler who spent hours interviewing David and came to the conclusion that he was an introverted loner, not capable of being involved in group activity. Relatable.
Same.
Dr. Harvey Schlossberg, an NYPD psychologist, said in Against the Law, a Son of Sam documentary, that it is his belief the satanic cult claims are nothing more than a fantasy made up by David Berkowitz to absolve himself of the crimes. And finally, more than possible. And finally, Elliot Layton, in his book Hunting Humans, argued that recent journalistic attempts to abridge or even deny Berkowitz's guilt have lacked all credibility. Which is true, there's been no evidence, only speculation.
Yeah, it is only speculation. Now, I do think it's interesting as a theory.
And I do think it's interesting with the suicide car crash.
Yeah,
so close together.
It's very, very interesting.
I can see how people would see them as...
I suppose it does have some credibility in terms of the witness statements. One witness said it was a man in his 30s. One witness said he had blonde hair. But then again,
could one witness have just managed to have spot someone who was also in the area who had nothing to do with it?
And it is a common thing. Like, we could witness a car crash. We could witness, like, a hit and run. And you could tell the police the car was a 99 Toyota Corolla, it was blue, and I could say, oh, it was a Ford and it was green and it was a 2002. Because humans' memory is unreliable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of, like, legacy, even now, decades after the murders and the arrest, the name Son of Sam is well known as that of a serial killer. There have been many different media depictions based on him. Berkowitz continues to express remorse on Christian websites, actually. And Nasa Moskowitz, Stacy's mother, who had previously been extremely public about her hatred for Berkowitz, actually wrote him a letter shortly before her death in 2006, and in it she forgave him for killing her daughter.
That was...
Which, fair fucks, because I don't know if I'd be strong enough.
I think you would.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, but like her, I feel like it'd be a thing
Eventually,
that we wouldn't do. It'd be either a very, very long time later or on the deathbed.
Yeah. Because it was a couple of months before she died. And she just kind of, I think, just forgave him for killing Stacey.
Yeah.
Which I just think would be so... Like, it's a very admirable thing.
Oh,
a very
100%.
Admirable thing.
But it's definitely one of those things that hopefully none of us or anyone we know would ever be in that position.
Exactly.
But I feel like it's only one of those things that you only know if you're capable when it happens.
Yeah.
Like the same with any disaster or any really horrible thing that happens. You don't know if you're going to be able for it, or you don't realise how strong you are until you have no choice.
What's that quote that used to always... The people used to be getting tattooed on them. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have left.
Yeah. Last little part is just legal effects. So I suppose how this case affected law as a whole, I guess, in America. So after much speculation about publishers offering David Berkowitz large amounts of money for his story, the New York State Legislature quickly passed a new law that prevented convicted criminals and their relatives from making any financial profit from
Jack just walked into the door.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Jack.
Poor doggy.
Come here, let me rub your head.
That prevented convicted criminals and their relatives from making... He's just odd.
No, Bella.
From making any financial...
Oh,
yeah, that sounds like her. For making any financial profit from books, movies, or other enterprises related to the stories of their crimes. The United States Supreme Court, however, struck down the so-called Son of Sam law for violating the First Amendment's right of free expression in the 1991 case of Simon and Schuster Incorporated versus Crime Victims Board.
Simon and Schuster, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a publishing company, isn't it? Because I'm sure Simon and Schuster books...
Oh, probably. But New York made a constitutionally revised version of the law in the following year, and similar laws have since been enacted in 41 states and at the federal level. Because I know that's still a thing that you can't make money off it. So if something happens, you can get it to be put to a charity or something like that, but you can't be the one to get the money.
So it's not that you can't write a book or anything like that.
You just can't you basically can't benefit from it.
But you have to donate the proceeds to charity or to the victims' families or somewhere. You can't donate. You can't give it to your family or to yourself.
And that concludes the Son of Sam.
That was a wild one.
Who is still living and in prison and is due for another parole hearing any day now.
Is that the first case we've covered where the murderer is still alive?
Is BTK still alive?
No, I think he died.
I thought he was still alive. Why did I think that?
I don't know.
I'll check.
I could be wrong. Dennis Rader.
No, he's alive.
Oh, is he? Oh, it's not the first one. He's 77.
Yeah.
How old is
David Berkowitz.
David Berkowitz, yeah.
69.
69. Madness.
But so he's due for parole.
Do you not think, right, in this picture especially, he looks like... How can I put this in words?
He looks like your man out of fucking Austin Powers.
Which one?
The evil dude.
Oh, Dr. Evil.
That's it.
Dr. Evil with hair, but also, do you not think he looks like someone wearing a skin suit?
A little bit,
the way his
it's
face,
very shiny and shaped. And
just in this picture, like in the rest of them, he looks
like a normal,
but like this one, he just looks like someone wearing a skin suit.
He looks like a wax museum figurine.
Yeah.
But, okay, Jack.
Jack's like, okay, shut up now.
Yeah, like fuck off. I'm going to the
pub. Drop Josh to the pub.
Relax. So
I'm gonna go home and cuddle my dog and my mans.
Thank you all for listening once again. And we hope
these are very good.
Exactly. We hope you enjoyed it as much as one can enjoy murder and legal talk and court.
And us chatting shit and skitting at random shit. And the
dog
drinking water.
Yeah.
And technical difficulties.
So,
and Josh's stepdad taking off his shoes.
Yeah, that was loud.
Very loud. It's because the room is right above us. Though.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Because we're not recording in Colin the Corolla for the first time in how knows how long.
For the first time and also God knows how long.
Yeah. Jeez,
but anyway,
thanks for listening.
Thank you guys. Talk to you later. I'm going to go get pissed now.
I'm going to go home.
Much love.
Bye.
Ciao.
Slán.
Hasta luego.